Hi, my name is Carrie Barnum. I am the Executive Director of New Shelves Books, and today I am here with Tara Alamady. We are going to be talking about book launches, fiction, nonfiction, children's book. It really doesn't matter. There are some key components of a book launch that you really want to follow. And all of us know that we should prep for a book launch, but it can kind of be overwhelming trying to figure out what to do, when to do it, and to stay organized. I have worked with so many authors who either have 15 spreadsheets or they've got, an email to themselves here, and then they've got a calendar, and then maybe they've got a Trello board. And so we're talking about not only launching your book well, but book launches simplified. Let's take the basics of a book launch and let's make it more simple. Let's make it easy, because it should be easy, it should be fun, and it should be something that pretty much any author can do if they're willing to put in the work. And that is what Tara has been working on, is a program that literally walks us through that. And we're going to talk about what it takes to launch a book, and then some of the tools that just make life easier. And so with that, we've got Tara here. So hi, Tara.
Hi, Carrie. Thanks for having me.
Of course. And Tara is a multi-award winning author of 7 books. She's also a speaker, a publisher, and a serial entrepreneur, as we can tell. And so Tara has the opportunity to work with books day in and day out, and work with authors and book launchers through her publishing company, Emerald Lakes Books. And that is kind of what inspired this program, right?
It is. What I found is that I would spend this time coaching our authors on how to prepare for their book launch. But as the company grew, I didn't have enough time to do the basic information over and over and over again. That just didn't make sense. So what I decided to do was create a course that our authors could go through so that I could focus my time on helping them with more strategic aspects of their launch. So It's a great way to replicate myself.
That's right. I've often said I need a clone, and unfortunately, there's no ethical way quite to do that yet. But sometimes having these easy tools that make the process easier, that put the power in your hands as an author. And this works whether you're self-published, traditionally published, it doesn't matter. Because the truth is that even if you are being published by a traditional house, even one of the big house, let's talk Penguin, Random House, these publishers, so often they do the basics of marketing, and then they hand the book to you and they say, okay, your turn, go do it. And if you're not prepared to market your book, then it really doesn't go anywhere. So it really doesn't matter who you're publishing with. If you're self-publishing, if it's fiction, nonfiction, you really have to have a plan in place if you want your book to succeed. And that is kind of what this layout is. It's what do you need to do? What questions do you need to ask? Because sometimes you're going to say, well, my publisher will do that, right? And no. And I'm telling you, I've worked with USA Today bestselling authors. I've worked with big publishing houses, small publishing houses. And there are many times that authors take for granted that something will be done for them, and it's not. So knowing the questions to ask is sometimes half the battle, because you don't know what you don't know. And so Tara, I'm going to hand it over to you, because Tara is our queen of organization over here, because she has got this list of all the things that we need to really go through.
So typically, before we get into kind of the layout of what goes into a marketing plan, I like to talk about the fact that there are 3 things you need to know first. And one is, who is your ideal reader? The other is, what do you want to accomplish? And the third is, where are you now in relation to what you want to accomplish? So we have exercises we do. You may have heard me talk in the past about the Dear Reader exercise. That's how you identify your ideal reader. We have the Dear Author exercise, which I actually wrote a guest post for New Shelves, so you can find information about the Dear Author exercise on the blog there. And then once you know what you want to accomplish and who you are trying to reach, that gives you kind of a framework for how to get from where you are now to where you want to be. Because as you are marketing your book, you're going to find there's all sorts of opportunities that come out. Should I spend my time here? Should I spend my energy there? Should I pay for this? Should I go there? And unless you know what you're trying to accomplish, you're never going to know what's in scope and what's out of scope, what's going to move you to your goal and what's just going to be a distraction and a rabbit trail. So when you're marketing your book, you really want to know where you want to get. So once you have those things figured out, Then we talk about the fact that there are a bunch of different ways that you can market and promote a book. And now you can look at those different ways and determine which ones really work for you. Because I never recommend spending time using a marketing technique that you're not comfortable with. You know, if you're not into social media, being on social media, if it's painful for you, it's going to be painful for those who are trying to connect with you on social media. So do the things that come naturally. Jack Canfield with Chicken Soup for the Soul talked about the fact that he and Mark Victor Hansen committed to doing 5 things each day to be able to promote and market their book. And it could be something as simple as sending out an email or reaching out to somebody new or contacting a bookstore or doing a podcast or radio show. Even if you decide that you don't have time to do 5 things each day, but you do 5 things each week or 1 thing each day, whatever it might be, by the end of the year, you will have done so many things to promote and market your book that you're going to see progress one way or another. And so when you can keep them aligned with what you actually want to achieve as an author, that's really going to be very satisfying at the end. So as Carrie and I talked about, we created a course for our authors and we've opened it up to anybody who's interested in it. And I'm just going to give you a quick screenshot of what that course starts out like, because here we give you kind of the framework of the different things that you want to think about and know. As you start, you want to know if you published it yourself, you're going to know where your listings are. But if you didn't publish it yourself, you need to know where your publisher released it to. So is it in the channels that libraries can access? Is it in the channels that bookstores want to see? If you're trying to get into a university setting, is it available in those distribution channels? So you need to kind of know where that book is available. And then we talk about author profiles and where should you be setting up your author profiles. And the idea there that I support is that every profile you set up is a digital footprint expansion. It's another search engine result. And so, yes, you want to set up your profile on BookBub and on Goodreads and on Library Thing and all these different things, not just Amazon. You want to have a website, you want to have, Facebook presence. So these author profiles really give you an idea of where people can connect with you and creates additional search opportunities. We get into social media, not just how to use it, but when to use it, where to use it. And we talk about building your launch team. Now, launch team is that group of individuals who are going to partner with you to be able to promote your book. Now, we also talk in this course about the fact that your release date and your launch date may very well be 2 separate things. Right, Carrie? That's not always the same thing.
No, and I often say when authors have a launch date, I say have a private party, because if you think that there are going to be fireworks, it's not going to happen. Plan something on your own. Get a bottle of champagne, go out for dinner, whatever it is. Your release date is just the date your book shows up online or is available. Your launch date is your party. And having that kind of separation and expectation keeps a lot of people from tears. And if you want fireworks, well, then go get your own fireworks, David, and make your party. But just realize that sales don't instantly just show up. Just because your book's available doesn't mean everything happens at once. We are the tortoise, not the hare. Everything kind of takes a little while to build up.
Exactly. And so with that launch, though, the other part of it is that your release date basically happens once for each edition. Your launch date, you can launch a book multiple times. And so you can have a launch and then 6 months later, tie it into a special event, 4 months later, tie it into a trending topic. And so you can continually be rinsing and repeating with your launch strategies. It's just a matter of making sure that you aren't inundating with the same audience all the time. And so finding other audiences to be able to launch to. And so when you're using this framework, it's really going to, help you figure out exactly how do you make this launch different than the last one? How do you drive different traffic? And so I think that ideal reader, people talk about the fact that everybody's going to love my book. Well, not really, not really. But when you're marketing, if you can identify one ideal reader that you're going to market to now, you can identify a different ideal reader that you're going to launch to in the future. And so maybe you have a book that's really good for spiritually centered coaches, but it's also really good for yoga people, and it's really good for health fanatics. You can have a launch of the book fanatics. That doesn't sound good in this day and age. I shouldn't say that. For health aficionados. There you go. So the idea is, though, that you can target each launch with a different audience in mind. And therefore, you're not inundating the same audience each time, but you're allowed to bring the full power to bear of having multiple people come and support that launch activity. So that's my soapbox about launch teams.
Well, and I think that's a really good point. And it is literally a joke with publishing professionals when people say, everyone will love my book. No, it's not even that. But if you don't have a target, you can't hit anything. And when you say that, that's kind of like me saying, okay, I've got to go buy an outfit for someone. Who am I buying it for? Oh, it could be anyone, 2 to 92. Well, I don't know about you, but a toddler in my house wears something slightly different than a 92-year-old. And so you can't really make that outfit work for everybody. You've got to make sure that you are allowing them to really shine. And when you focus in on a specific market, you actually get much better sales, much better responses, reviews than when you try to throw spaghetti at the wall and hit everybody. So finding that target market, that Dear Reader exercise is something that even as you're writing can be helpful, not just on your book launch, but even as you're writing, creating illustrations, all of that, it really ties in together. So that's something that no matter what stage in the writing or authorship process you're in, that is a fantastic exercise to get started with.
Yeah, we actually have our authors do the Dear Reader exercise pretty much right after they submit the manuscript to us, because we have the letter that they end up writing and we give it to the editors, so that when the editors are reviewing the manuscript, they can actually make sure that that ideal reader that we're supposed to be targeting and that we're supposed to be reaching out to and connecting with, that's actually happening in the book. So I'm going to just describe it real quick, not that I was prepared to talk about the Dear Reader, but it does factor into this. And with the Dear Reader letter, essentially what you're doing is you are imagining one ideal reader. And it's really helpful if it's somebody that you might know or somebody that you have a personal connection with, because you can make that letter all the more significant then. And you're going to write a letter to them that kind of explains a few things. One is an acknowledgement of understanding why they picked up your book, what attracted them to it, and what were they looking for in doing it, whether that's entertainment or solving a problem or celebrating something, having that understanding of why they're picking up your book. And then you're going to talk about what the book is about and why you are the one uniquely qualified to share that information. What's your experience with it? What makes you the person that they might want to hear about it from? And it finishes off with a promise. And that promise is, if they invest their time and money in purchasing and reading your book, what are you guaranteeing they're going to get out of it? And when you can write a letter to somebody that has that much clarity and that much focus, and you can write multiple Dear Reader letters, you can write one to that health aficionado and another to the yoga therapist, and write each one with that target audience in mind of who your ideal reader is for that campaign, then you can get really, really clear about what information goes in the book, what goes in your marketing, what language you use, what channels you try and reach out to in order to be part of your launch strategy. So it's all very important.
Yes. I couldn't agree more. And like you said, that is on the New Shelves website. The kind of Tara took us through the exercise, and that is such an integral part. And it's the kind of the cliff that you jump off to start your book marketing, to start your book launch. And you have to start with a really strong base. You have to know all of your book launch, all of your marketing is based off of this. Don't try to skip it. Don't say, oh, I'll do it later. This is something that you can't skip. It's something that if you skip, nothing else will make sense. And you will be spinning your wheels, taking time, money, and effort, putting it into something that won't bear much fruit, and you'll get very frustrated. So starting with this is really important.
Yeah. I was describing the Dear Reader. This one's the Dear Author that we have on the New Shelves website. And that's that's the companion piece. And that is, you imagine yourself 18 months in the future and write a letter to yourself, the you are today. And the idea is, when you're facing your marketing and looking ahead, it can be kind of intimidating and challenging. And you can get in your head too much about all the work that's going to be involved. But this you that's 18 months in the future has already seen the results of everything that you've invested your time and effort in. They've seen the readers whose lives have been changed, or who really enjoyed what you wrote, or the movie option you got, or all these different things that may have come. So I refer to this letter as a verbal vision board. It's essentially you 18 months in the future, writing to you that you are now to provide encouragement and inspiration. And the idea is you're sharing with yourself all of the things that have been accomplished. And at the end of that letter, what you do is go through and highlight the different goals that were accomplished, the different achievements that were accomplished. And then you prioritize the top 3 achievements, and those become part of the goal that you're trying to reach with your book as an author. And so that gives you the framework for, all right, where am I now and where do I want to go? And what do I need to do in between to get there? Who do I need to have on my launch team? What type of social media platform do I need to be on? How big a mailing list do I need? How do I leverage other people's audiences? And these are all things to be thinking about. Yeah. So I'm going to go back and share my screen and just hit the other high-level topics that are in the course that are part of your book launch. You can also focus on what your book marketing materials are going to be. So this is partly about your website, but partly about different print options you may have. So this is, Carrie and I have talked many times about needing a sell sheet and what all goes into a sell sheet. And so in the course, we get into that. And there's quite a few things in here that actually point to New Shelves resources or New Shelves articles. So you may find some familiar things in there. But we also talk about bookmarks, postcards, drop cards, which are one-time use ebook cards, so that you can actually go to a conference and maybe give out some drop cards to different people that have a QR code or a scan that they can scan and get a single download of your ebook. If somebody else scans it afterwards and it's already been claimed, it's no longer usable. So you're kind of limiting any issues about piracy. But it allows you not to have to lug a suitcase of books if you're going to speak someplace or going to an event. The course also talks about reviews, both trade and editorial reviews, as well as how to get reader reviews. And with reader reviews, we talk about both from the standpoint of using directories versus going out and trying to find them one at a time. And so we go through those different things. And then other high-level topics that we cover have to do with advertising and publicity. And publicity is the huge one. There's like 19 different lessons in there. They cover everything from press releases and book awards to alumni associations and all these different things. But the thing is that as you go through, there are so many different things that you can include in a book launch strategy. And you need to really know what you are comfortable with doing. Because if you're doing something, as I said before, that you're not comfortable with, you're not going to have fun with it. And readers want to engage with authors in a way that makes them feel like they've gotten to know somebody. And if you're not fun to be around, they're not really going to be interested in buying your book.
Well, and sometimes too, it's important to find the things that you are comfortable doing and you really enjoy, and the things that really have to be done, but you're not good at, so you can find the partners to help you do them. Because not too long ago, I was talking to Orna Ross over at the Alliance of Independent Authors, and she said, one of the things I love that she said is, the sooner you forget the self in self-publishing, the better off you'll be, because it doesn't mean you're a lone wolf. It just means that you are in control. You get to make decisions, but it also means that you get to decide what you love to do and focus on that. And then you work with people who can help fill in the gaps, because maybe you're not great at creating a sales sheet or a marketing sheet. There are templates, there are people to help you with that. There are so many options. So it's important too to know what should be done, so you can identify ahead of time what you need help with and budget and plan for that, so that you're not stuck at book launch going, oh man, I really hated doing all this stuff, so I have nothing to show. It's important that you know ahead of time, because budget, we know publishing is not necessarily inexpensive. And so it's important to know what you need to plan for a great book launch, because you don't want to spend all this time and effort creating your book and then just have it fall flat. So that's also an important part. And I wanted to kind of pick up on one of the things, because you have advertising, marketing, and publicity as 3 separate items. And I know that there's a difference, but I would love your take on what the difference is between the 3.
Between advertising, marketing, and publicity. So marketing is understanding how you communicate with your target audience that you're trying to reach. And that could be your readers, or that could be the buyers. So that could be the librarians, the retailers, the bookstores. So how are you going to communicate them? What information do they need in order to make their decisions as to what they want to buy and what they want to read? When it comes to advertising, that is going to be something like your Amazon ads, your Facebook ads, YouTube ads, different things like that, even trade journal ads. And this is where you're going to pay in order to be able to promote your book in front of an existing platform, whether that's Facebook, YouTube, Amazon, trade journals. We had a book once that was called The Life and Times of the Great Danbury State Fair. And so it was a local fair that had a lot of carnival folks that traveled up and down the eastern seaboard from Maine down to Florida. And so we did advertising in a magazine that's specifically for carnival people, because we knew that a lot of them would have come through this area to participate in that fair. So you want to think about, who is an ideal reader for the book and advertise in the places that they're going to be. So when it comes to publicity, publicity is every opportunity that you create for yourself that generates more visibility for you. And so for us, that has to do with press releases, that has to do with book awards. It can have to do with, we put out our press releases into alumni association newsletters, into different trade journals, things like that. So it can also be about media appearances, podcasts, radio shows, being in the local newspaper. There's all sorts of different ways to create publicity. In some ways, even the virtual summit that I do around my Publish with Purpose is a publicity event, in the sense that I'm putting together a virtual summit. It is around the topics of my book. All of the marketing and visibility that goes towards promoting that summit also promotes the brand of my book. And so all of that visibility is a form of publicity. So it's any time you can get your name and get people talking about it, or your book's title and get people talking about it.
Exactly. And the way that, and I love, you did a great overview, and like a super boiled down version of what I usually say is publicity is getting people to see your book. Marketing is asking people to buy your book. And a lot of people don't realize that these are two separate things. And I have worked with people time and again, and they say, well, I worked with a publicist, big money publicist, and I got no book sales. So, well, what kind of marketing did you do with it? I had a publicist. They're going, well, that's someone telling people, it's getting your book seen, it's putting it out there. But if there's no ask to buy your book, if there's no people driving links and telling people how and where they can buy it, then there are no sales. So it's a 1-2 punch that you really need to have together. And many times advertising and marketing will go hand in hand, because we know in marketing that you're asking people to buy a book. And sometimes you have to put paid advertising behind that to stand out from the crowd, to actually get in front, because with over 1 million books published every single year, sometimes you got to pay to be at the front of the line when people are looking for books. And that's where your advertising pushes your marketing. So it's kind of like you've got, here is your marketing, and the advertising is pushing it behind to really push you forward so that it doesn't go stagnant. And so I think that it's important we realize they're three completely separate, well, not completely separate, but they're three separate tasks, and you have to do all of them. You can't just say, well, I really like book awards, so I think I'll do that, and my book will sell, right? That's not how it works.
I haven't checked yet, but one of my books won an award Saturday night, and I guarantee you there have been no new sales since it. But it's just one of those things that it's a marketing opportunity, it's a publicity opportunity. So first of all, when you do a book award, the award competition puts out a press release. I can put out a press release as the author. My publishing company can put out a press release, and every single piece of information along that line about it is now another opportunity for people to discover the book. And in business, they say sales, they used to say that it takes 7 to 10 touches, 7 to 10 times for somebody to see you before they bought anything. In more recent years, that's up to 12 to 14, depending on who you talk to. Either way, it's very uncommon for people to make a sales decision the very first time they see you. So you need to create opportunities for them to see you multiple times. And especially if they start seeing you in different places, then they have the impression of, gee, this person's everywhere, and I better check it out before I lose out on something.
That's exactly. We want to create a little bit of FOMO. We want people to feel like they're missing out on our books. And that is, again, and you use the publicity in marketing. If I'm marketing a book to a library and they have publicity through awards, through big endorsements or reviews, I use that to drive the interest in the marketing. So it's all very much interwoven, but they're separate efforts. And so you have to put the time in separately to do them and know what the steps are to kind of hit those things.
And you can use things like book awards to generate some social media content as well, both by congratulating other people who have won in the same award ceremony, as well as cheering about the fact that, I posted at the beginning of the awards gala, I said, within the next 2 hours, I'm going to know what I won, and at the end of it, I had, I think, 89 different comments on the post because people were all excited about, the outcome. So those 89 different comments now are people that, their friends have seen some of that comment as well. So it expands in social media so that somebody who didn't know me may now actually be curious about, well, what's this book about? So they're going to go check it out, hopefully.
Absolutely. So I love that. So we've got this amazing mind map that kind of walks us through the different steps. What else goes into this? What else goes into a book launch aside from this really big, we've got these different things. What goes into deciding what you do, what you farm out, and what you skip?
A lot of it has to depend on what you're willing to invest, because you can either invest time, elbow grease, or money. And so based on what your budget is, you need to start out first with having a realistic conversation with yourself, me, myself, and I. And, what am I willing to invest in doing this? Where can I most beneficially see some progress? So for instance, when we talk about getting reader reviews, we typically will start out first in the places where we know readers are looking for books. So we love having our books out on NetGalley and things like that. Book Sirens is another one we use. And by putting it out on platforms where readers are already looking for books to review, it increases our odds of finding a reviewer. A lot of people, they instead go the opposite direction where they try and find one by one somebody who will review. So they'll reach out to people and say, well, will you review my book? The length of time it takes to get the same number of reviews is significantly shorter if you're using a review site than it is if you're trying to ask people one at a time. So knowing where you want to invest, if you have a little bit of money that it takes to be able to do a listing on a review site, it's better to do that because you'll get results quicker. But not everybody has the funds to do that initially. And so they are more willing to invest their time and their elbow grease. And so that one-on-one outreach is fine. You can do that by going to Amazon and looking for people who have reviewed similar books, and then looking for their public profile information to find ways to be able to reach out to them, whether through their website or their social media networks. So it's always a matter of figuring out, what do you have? What are you willing to invest in your marketing? And in some instances, it's really, if I had to do a cover, I would never, ever, ever publish a book, because I can't even draw a realistic stick figure. So it's one of those things that I know, no matter what, however many books I write or publish, I am always going to need somebody to make a cover for me. And so, yeah, that's just a no-brainer. So when you're doing your marketing, if you decide that there's value to you because you have a robust YouTube channel, that you want to have a book trailer for your YouTube channel, great. If you're not comfortable making it on your own, hire somebody else to do it for you. Once again, that becomes another piece of content that you can use as part of your launch. It's something that you can put on your website. In some instances, as long as there's not a commercial aspect to it, you can even put it on your book listing on Amazon. You can add the video. So, knowing what content you want to have as part of supporting the marketing of your book is going to kind of dictate where you spend your time and money.
Absolutely. Well, and things with that too, I've had people say, I want a book trailer. And I say, great. Do you use social media? No. Do you have a website? No. Maybe, although it looks super cool, maybe a book trailer is not the best use of your budget. And so I think in a lot of these things, it's as you said, having this conversation with you yourself and I, and kind of realizing what realistically is going to move me forward? What sounds very bright and shiny, and what is going to actually help me move forward? And having this kind of step-by-step process and question, and seeing what I love about the big mind map here is that it lays everything out for you, because I am one of those people. I like to see things in stages, but I also like to see everything spread out. And I'm a highlight girl and a red pen girl. And I like to go, oh, that one looks good. And that one looks good. And kind of see big things. Because what I don't want to do is I don't want to spend a bunch of time on, let's say, marketing, and then realize I should have been spending time over on social media or different things like that. So having all the options laid out, so what I really know is available to me and what I could or should be focusing on, and then having that realization of how, again, does it come back to my reader? How does it fit with my reader? Because maybe I really want to be on, maybe I really want to be on Facebook, but I have a book for high school kids and they're not on Facebook. They're on Instagram, maybe. They're definitely on TikTok. So if I'm going to spend time on social media, then I need to learn TikTok, or I need to have something else entirely to spend my time on. So I think it's kind of seeing all of the opportunities and then cherry picking where your audience is at as well.
Or you need to have kids so they can do it for you.
Kids, nice neighbors, a VA, a virtual assistant. But again, it's putting in your time.
But your next door neighbor's nephew, who is a graphic designer, is never going to be a cover designer. Just saying.
Yes. And no matter how lovely the art your grandchild made is, it's not a book cover. And so I think that's really important. And so as you have this outline of all the things to do, you've also got resources, right? So it actually tells you where to go to these things, a list. It's not just like, hey, go do it. You give actual meat in there.
Yes, I do. And so what I do with some of them is, I give you resources. So for instance, I don't think I could ever teach Amazon ads nearly as well as Dave Chesson from Kindlepreneur does. So rather than trying to go through Amazon ads myself, I talk about the importance of Amazon ads and how we use them in our business. And then I direct people to that resource. But I also talk about things like, if you want to do a lot of, if you're in social media, I talk about a tool called mock-up shots that you and I have mentioned before that is absolutely wonderful. It's inexpensive. It's a lifetime deal. You purchase it and you can make hundreds of images that have people or different situations with your book cover in it. And if you're doing a lot in social media, if you're creating press releases that you want to have images for, it's a quick and easy way to be able to have a great library of promotional content that you can use in your sell sheet and elsewhere. And so, it becomes very easy. I do one of the lessons in there is a behind the scenes look at how to use mock-up shots, what it's capable of, where some of its limitations are. I do the same thing with something called Book Awards Pro, which is a service that we love. Book Awards Pro has a subscription model where for a very low cost fee, last I looked, it was like $9 a month. It will look at the different book awards that are currently open and available that your book would be suitable for. And it lets you know when the release, when the submission closes and when the judges' announcements are made and stuff like that. So we have certain book awards that we really like our authors participating in because we know we always do well. But if the submission deadline is just closed and it's going to be another year before an announcement is made, that's not necessarily the one we want to be focusing on. We want to focus on one that we have a chance of knowing whether or not we won sooner rather than later, because we use that in our marketing. So we go through a lot of these different tools and techniques. We talk about, different press release distribution services. If you're interested in writing a press release and distributing it, what are some of the options in doing that? How do you get it out there? Actually, just to give a quick peek, very quick peek, when that mind map is expanded, you'll see over 124 different things that we cover in here that are just all different things to look at. When you get into the editorial reviews, different places that you can do editorial reviews, and how much in advance of publication do you have to submit your book if you want to do the free trade review versus if you're willing to pay, which ones can be done afterwards. So there's all these different options to be considering. And so this kind of becomes the roadmap that allows you to filter out, all right, what am I going to focus on now? What do I need to do before the release? What can I do after the release? So it gives a lot of great information for people to make decisions with, so that they can make the plan that works best for them based on their top 3 goals. If they've done the Dear Author letter and they know what they're trying to accomplish, they know where they are and where they want to go. Now they can look at something like this and say, all right, these are the things that are going to move the needle. These are the things that are going to bring me closer to that accomplishment.
Yeah. Well, and I think too, what I like about this is it's you actually give, so this class actually has modules that show people how to use different tools. And so having the different things that you know how to use, not just, hey, here's a great tool. Sometimes we need a little hand-holding and training. And so in this course, tell us about what the actual trainings are, not just the mind map, but you actually have modules, you have lots of video. I'm a visual learner, so unless it's like, we were talking about this before we got on, instructions, like instructions I have to read. I sit there and I'll read them like 5 times and I'm like, okay, but how do I do it? And so I'm a visual learner, and I love that you've got a bunch of videos in this module so that you can see how to use things.
Right. So the course itself is a mixture of video and then homework assignments, because as I said, we structured this initially for our own authors. And so the idea was the videos would give them kind of the understanding that they need to have, the information they need to have. And then the homework assignment walks them through what they need to do in order to implement that. So for instance, when we talk about claiming your BookBub profile, it's something that you need to do. It's something that we want you to have as part of your launch, so that it's a place that people can go leave reviews and follow you, so that the next time you do a book or put an update out there or recommend somebody else's book, people know. And so we give a video that kind of talks about it first and shows you how to do it. And then you have a homework assignment to go do it. And here's the information you need to have. And make sure you have this all together before you get in there, because if you don't have it all together, you're not going to get it done. So the course is a mixture of video instruction and some recommended resources in terms of other articles to go look at. So for instance, when we talk about writing your author bio, making sure that you have a solid author bio, we give you our thoughts about what should go into an author bio, but then we send you to a couple of articles that we like sharing with our authors about what others think make for a good author's profile, because I'm not the be all end all as to what the right thing is for an author's bio. But when you see a few samples, you can start figuring out what's going to work for you, what style fits you best, and what should go in there.
Right. Well, and so not knowing what fits you best and giving you different perspectives, giving you concrete ideas of where to start. I think we get overwhelmed and we kind of go, well, I don't want to mess it up. And I hear this all the time from authors. I know I need to do this, but I haven't started because I don't want to mess it up. And the hand holding that, no, this is fine. You got this. This is what it should look like. That for me brings a lot of confidence, because then if I can see you do it and know that you're doing it right, then I feel like, all right, I got this. I'm not going to mess it up. I can pause, I can replay, I can go in. And I kind of like that. Okay, well, I'm going to out myself, but I kind of like the homework, because it gives a sense of expectancy of, okay, you have to do this step to get to the next step, which is how you build. I often say that a book launch is a little bit like a snowball rolling downhill. And if you don't do that, you're never going to roll downhill. You're going to have these little pockets everywhere, but you won't have anything cohesive that can really run.
Yes, and I think that's one of the things that's kind of crucial about doing any course like this, is that you don't want to just be gathering knowledge, because you can learn till the cows come home. If you don't apply any of it, if you don't implement any of it, you're not going to get anywhere with your marketing. Yeah. So it's really important to go through this and see some accomplishments taking place. See that, all right, I've got my Goodreads profile set up, and I've claimed my book, and I've got my BookBub profile set up, and I've claimed my book, and I'm making progress. And that's the thing is, as soon as we start to see some of these things being accomplished, it gives us a little bit energy and fuel for tackling the next thing, because, hey, I was able to do that, so let me try this one.
Right. And so we actually have Crystal saying that mind map is huge and it gives me a little bit of anxiety, but
Mhm.
you're not meant to do it all at once. And that's kind of why I like that it does kind of fold out, because it breaks it up. And also, you don't have to do everything. It's giving you your options. And as
Yes.
you said, once you do a couple of things and it gets results, you're rejuvenated to tackle more. So as far as like, as big as it is, on average, what would you say the average author, do they do everything on the mind map eventually? Do they only do parts of it?
I would say most of them only do parts of it, but they have the understanding of what their options are so they can decide which suits them and which doesn't. And they may come back with a second book later on and decide that different parts suit them. Certainly, I have had authors go all the way through watching all of the video content, but not necessarily doing all the homework, because that homework assignment wasn't one that they wanted to do, and that's fine. And oftentimes it's funny because I don't typically show the expanded mind map. In the course, you don't see the expanded mind map until the very last lesson, because in the very last lesson, then you can see all of the territory you covered and how much you've accomplished doing it one step at a time.
Yeah.
And that's the thing about marketing a book, as it's going back to the Jack Canfield quote about, just do something, one thing, even if it's just one thing each day, you will make progress with your book marketing.
Yeah. I call those 10-minute marketing moments. 10 minutes a day. That's all it takes. And whether that's Monday through Friday, that's 3 days a week, set aside 10 minutes and see what you can accomplish, because 10 minutes 3 times a week, that's a half hour. Is it more than you did last week? If so, then you're already making progress, and you can't expect to make progress if you don't put in the time, the money, or the effort. You really have to put in somewhere. And if you want to see the progress, but feel like you're actually going somewhere, this helps because it gives you, often they're called income producing activities, where you are actually doing something that matters, rather than, we've all done this. I really need to do some of my social media, so I'm just going to go on Facebook. And then an hour later, you've looked at every cat meme and you've seen all these like sea shanty videos. But what have you not done at all is touch your actual author page. I know I'm not the only one who does that. And if so, please someone make me feel better by feeling, saying you're with me.
Yes, one of the lessons actually talks about using scheduling tools, so that with your social media, you can, take an hour one day a week and schedule out what your posts are going to be, so that you're being consistent without having to go every day to post something. But then when you do go out into social media each day, you can have more fun with it, because you're not thinking about the strategy of what you need to put out. You can focus more on the engagement piece.
Exactly. We do that here at New Shelves. We kind of think of our content a week at a time. Here at New Shelves, we have a lot of content that changes for, in publishing and news and things like that. So it's constantly changing. So we just do a week at a time, but that means that it's scheduled out a week in advance. When I go on social media, I get to just look at everyone's new launches. I get to look at Tara's award, which I totally liked that post and was following it. And so it's that kind of thing. So it is more fun. It's more community. And that's a key piece, is having the availability, not just to schedule posts, but to interact. People are looking for interaction. And so that kind of tip really takes your marketing efforts further, which I really appreciate that. And I love that.
Yeah, I love it too, because I find that being strategic about what you're doing with your social media and being social with what you're doing about your social media takes 2 different parts of the brain. And so it's like when I go into social media, I can do one or I can do the other, but I can't seem to do both when I'm on there. So I'll do the strategic part when it's quiet and I'm committed to just plain focusing on the strategy, and then I can enjoy myself the rest of the time.
Or you're like me, you have wonderful people that you work with, but I send them links, all these news article links and all of these like things. I send them whenever I get them. And Anna, my sidekick and my assistant, who is amazing, will schedule them out. And then I just go on and I get to see all the fun posts and do all that. So I love that. And we've got a couple of questions about the course, which we're going to go over how you get the course in just a second, you guys. But how far in advance of the book launch should one start taking the course? Ideally.
I think that because you want time to plan, rather than feeling rushed. If you were to start taking it, with our authors, oftentimes it's 3 to 6 months before their release date that we start having them go through it. And that way they really can take their time with it and figure out what fits with what they want to do, what they want to dig into and learn more about. Because as much as this is intended to be Book Launches Simplified, there's over 9 hours of video content in there. There's almost 100 lessons in there. And so you need time to be able to go through everything to figure out what's going to work for you and what's not. And the lessons are structured in such a way that each one shouldn't take more than 5 to 10 minutes to go through. It may take you longer to think about and figure out how you want to implement it, but that understanding, that core piece of it won't take very long. So being able to take, 3 to 6 months before is great. But we've had people, who have already released their book, who are taking it and they're applying the things that they're learning in it, and it's making a difference for them.
Yeah. And this is something you buy it once, lifetime access, correct? It's not like
lifetime access. Any future updates I put in it, you get as well. And we are doing, the course released with about 10 fewer lessons than it has now. So I am adding to it. And I have 12 other things I want to put in.
Oh, we have more stuff. And I'm like, geez, more. I love it, but wow. And I think that that's really important, is that this is something that whether you have 5 books, 1 book, or you've got a book coming out, you've got more coming out, it can work for all of your books. It can work multiple times. It works after your book has come out. As you said, even people who have already launched their books, you can still submit for awards after your book has come out. You can pick a new launch. You can pick a day that you really want to kind of refresh your book and bring it up with a bang. And there are a lot of things. Now, some things you never kind of get back. Like if you want to do professional reviews prior to release, you can't really go backwards on that one, but you can submit for endorsements from other authors. You can try and get reviews from actual readers. You can submit for book awards, sometimes for up to several years. There's a lot of opportunity if you feel like you launched your book and it kind of fell a little flat and it wasn't everything you hoped it would be. This course will still give you all the opportunities that you need to kind of launch it over again, to get a fresh start and a facelift for your book, as well as give you an idea of what you need to do for your next book. Because I know most of our authors and things like that, it's not just one book, you've got several books. And so knowing what it takes in kind of the low pressure setting of my book's already out, but let's see what I can do, can really help in the long term with your other books as well. Let's see. Wow. Dave has written and self-published about 20 books of fiction and nonfiction, but never really launched any of them. Will this course help with me going back and relaunching those books?
I believe so, yes. Keeping in mind, it depends on how closely related they are to one another. If those books are in a series, for instance, I would focus on launching the first one again. And in launching the first one, hoping that you get a good read through with the rest of them. If they're all standalone books, one of the things that can be challenging is to try and promote too many books at once. So I would focus on the ones that you want to draw attention to first and hope that that'll bring reader through to other titles that you've written. But yes, it can certainly be used for books that have been released already.
Right, absolutely. So we keep getting all these questions. What is this course? Where is this course? How do I get it? So I am actually going to pull up on my screen. I'm not as seamless as Tara, so we'll see how this works out, you guys. But let's see. Can you see my screen over here, Tara?
It is just, there we go. Yep, I can see it.
You guys can do this. I say this all the time. I know it feels like, wow, that mind map is huge. I know it feels like there's a lot to do, and there is a lot to do, but you can do it if you're committed to it. And I think that personally, Book Launches Simplified can help, and that is the program that Tara has created. And so we want to talk about what exactly is Book Launches Simplified, because we've talked about the process, but what exactly do you get with the course? Because I see questions popping up. So I'll tell you guys, it explores everything, that's launching and marketing your book successfully, fiction or nonfiction, which we kind of talked about. And then it takes a deep dive. So it's not just telling you the basics of you need to do this. It's, as Tara mentioned and talked about, it's the videos of telling you in depth what it does, how it works, videos. It's really kind of this aspect of getting hand-holding with on your own schedule. It's hand-holding, it's consulting, it's that kind of thing through video form. And it's constant, I mean, not constantly updated, but as it's updated, you get those updates. It's something that doesn't expire. You go at your own pace. So whether you've got a month and you zip right through it, or it takes you maybe 7 months, it's at your own pace. And then we kind of have this bird's eye view. So that mind map of like seeing really far and then digging in deeper and deeper, so that you can go through the process of book marketing like a pro. So you can actually go through all the things that publishing houses are doing, that successful, authors and best-selling authors are doing, so that you can make it work. And it's proven because Tara's been using it with some great success with authors. And now she, of course, this is brand new as far as being shared with anyone else. I think our group is one of the first groups that Tara has graciously agreed to kind of share all of her hard work with. And so I'm very excited about that. And when you get the actual Book Launches Simplified, you get the easy to follow online course. And that comes with 12 modules. And do the modules, Tara, do they have to be done like a module at a time? Do you skip around? How do they work?
So we typically recommend you do the first 2 modules first that lay the groundwork. And then from there, you can skip around if you choose.
I like it. I like to be a slight rebel, so I like that. Just slightly, though. It's
just enough framework.
That's right. 94 lessons, 94 different step-by-step lessons of how things work. Do all of those have video? Some of them have video?
No, I'd say about 2/3 of them have video.
Which is still a lot. And that's almost 9 hours of video, which is great. And homework assignments. Again, I've kind of outed myself as the little bit of a nerd who likes some homework assignments. And some of the things that are covered here are book listings. And that, of course, is talking about where your book actually is. Ingram Spark, Amazon, that kind of thing, right?
Yes, we do emphasize in this that this course is not about publishing. It's about marketing. So in this case, book listings really is just knowing where your book is available, so that as you're talking to people about buying it, you know where to send them.
Which is important. I have had people go, I didn't know my book was available at Barnes and Noble. And I'm going, yes, it was. All your author profiles. Amazon is not enough. Although I can't believe how many people don't even use Author Central. So it's Amazon, it's BookBub, Goodreads. It's free online space, and you should take every advantage of it. And having
not only that, it's not just Author Central, it's the international Author Centrals as well, because most authors only put it up, US authors only put it on the US site. There are multiple marketplaces, and you have the opportunity to access Author Central for each of them. Yep. So why not have your profile on all of them?
On all of them, and multiple language.
You can do that too.
Yeah. Launch teams, and exactly how you work with a launch team, the things you can ask of them, how you ask it of them in a way that is, when we call in our friends, we want to be friends at the end. So I think that it's very important to know how to work with launch teams, how to lay expectations down, and to really make it easy for them. Our launch teams are most of the time helping us out of the goodness of their heart. And so I think it's really important that we know how to work successfully with a launch team, to make great use of their time and show our appreciation and make it easy for them to do the things that we're asking. Social media, how to use it. Well, and more, I think it's about how to use it effectively. As I said, you can't just go onto Facebook, scroll around for a half hour and call it marketing, because as much as I wish it were, it's not. So having those tools in your back pocket to make it successful, to actually plan ahead so that you can be consistent, not post 1 week and then forget for 2 weeks and things like that. Consistency on social media and catching those algorithms is key. And editorial and consumer reviews. So we kind of touched on that a little bit. When to pitch, how to get consumer reviews. Are you going one at a time? Are you going through a review system like NetGalley? And honestly, just the pros and cons of both, because I don't think there's a wrong answer. There's what works best for you and what's going to help you launch your book successfully.
Mm-hmm.
And all your marketing materials, your book one sheet, your graphics, your mock-up sheets, or your mock-up shots, all the things that you need to really present your book and make it look beautiful and to provide what they need. If you go to a bookstore, you need the right marketing materials. You need to know that you've got one marketing sheet altogether that's got your ISBN, it's got your cover, it tells people where to buy the book. And so many times I hear people say, I went to the bookstore and asked if they'd carry my book, but they asked a bunch of questions and I didn't know, so I left. Don't blow your one shot, because bookstores typically don't give you very many, and they want to work with professionals. So having the right marketing materials is half the battle in getting people to carry and purchase your book. And book awards, which I think is great. Obviously, it's a great publicity piece and bragging rights, if nothing else, right? It's kind of fun to be like, wow, it's an award-winning book, and being able to talk about that, I think, is super fun. And the tips and tricks of, like you said, Tara, finding the book awards that not only work for your genre and work for your book, but also realizing that if book awards just ended a week ago, do you really want to wait a whole year to find out if you won, or do you maybe want to take your book award budget and put it somewhere else where it will actually show up more quickly? Because I mean, that matters too. Are you really going to wait an entire year for a book award, and what are you doing in the meantime? And your publicity and advertising, which we have talked about and how it's a little bit separate. Your publicity is telling people the book exists, and advertising is that paid marketing, putting the book in front of people and asking them to buy it. And they tag team for your sales. And more. I know there's so much more. This is kind of like a broad overview, but there's a lot more in there, and you kind of can explore it.
Yeah, one of my fun pieces that I just put in is about author events and what do you bring to an author event? And so I have a very long list of the things you should bring to an author event and what you should know before the event.
Yeah. And that takes out a lot of the nerves. I mean, I have been along for author events where I was running to the store last minute for people. And there was actually one time Amy Collins had an event and she didn't have enough books. And so she had me running out to go get her more books from our office mid-event, because she's like, I didn't think to plan that much. And so having a list certainly makes things go more smoothly. I love that you added that in there, because when you get this big opportunity, you don't want to blow it and you don't want to be stressed either. It kind of takes some of the fun out.
Yeah, for me, typically the big one is, is your card swipe going to work because you have internet access or not? If you're planning on letting people pay by credit card, but you don't have self-service and you don't have Wi-Fi, then you're kind of in a bind.
Right. And that's important too. And knowing, are you going to take cash or check? Having a plan, strategy, plan. Also, you talk about the ideal timing. So we kind of talked about that. And there is timing that you can fudge, and there's ideal timing. And sometimes there's hard timing that, like with reviews, for professional reviews, if you miss the bus, you miss the bus. So having the timing on that and knowing when to do things and the cost, because again, it's all about setting a plan and a budget and realizing what you have to work with and planning accordingly so that there are no surprises, or as few surprises as possible. You also talk about how one single decision, like going wide or narrow with your distribution, where you're actually getting your book available, and whether you're going to Kindle Unlimited and being exclusive with your ebook on Amazon, or getting your ebook everywhere, how it can affect so many other decisions. making decisions like, do I buy my own ISBN or do I take Ingram Sparks free ISBN? These are literally single decisions that pivot all of your options. It will change everything for you down the line. So knowing those things before you make the decision is super helpful. So that way that you're not, it's really hard to go backwards, to kind of scramble back and try to fix it. It's better to go in with your eyes wide open, knowing how those decisions might affect you down the line.
Yeah, the common one we see is that people who want to use KDP Select, but also want to have their book in libraries in the ebooks. And it's like, it's one or the other.
They are mutually exclusive. And knowing that that is the truth is super important. And I love this too, 125 potential resources. That is a whole lot of resources to have vetted, to have recommendations, to have information on, because resources make our life easier. It also makes things in many cases less expensive. Knowing that there may be a free resource out there, or having a resource that's been vetted so you're not wasting your time on certain things, is a huge bonus. So this right here alone is a really valuable piece. And I assume that you'll update those potential resources as you go along.
Certainly, yeah.
And
where applicable, there's times that we have been given, so for instance, Book Sirens has given a coupon code for us, so that our course participants, if they choose to use Book Sirens, which is a platform we highly recommend, but it's application based only, so you have to apply to be part of it, and not every book gets accepted. But for those that do, we have a coupon code that makes it less expensive for our students to be able to use Book Sirens for a review site.
Right. And we can all agree that a coupon is a good thing. When you're on a budget, a coupon's a good thing. And also just simply having the confidence of having an organized plan, of feeling like you know what you're doing, of not being stuck in your fear, but knowing what you're doing, having a plan, and going forward organized. Because going forward organized is how you get successful. It's how you launch successfully without scrambling last minute, without, losing sleep at night, because you're prepared and you've gone through all the steps. I think that alone, having, again, it's kind of that hand holding through a course, through video, and having that alone is a huge asset, because if you're paralyzed in fear, you go nowhere. And the confidence and the tools to do everything is a huge push, so that you can actually jump in and start making things happen. And as I said, Tara has just opened this up. We've got an introductory price, you guys, of $297. And this is lifetime access to everything we talked about. It may go up down the line depending on, all of the resources that Tara puts in, for sure, because she keeps adding modules. She just keeps being inspired. I think she's a little crazy, but I love it. I love her crazy. And then just a little crazy. I mean, just a little bit.
Just a little bit, but I'm building it out for the authors that I have to personally coach otherwise. And so every time I come up with something I want to share with our authors, I put it in the course so that it's shared with everybody.
Which is awesome. It's, highly motivated to just keep adding content. And then Tara, because we are fast friends and she is so generous, she has agreed to actually give all of our friends a $25 discount. So if you use code New Shelves through Saturday at midnight, you get it for $25 off. So your final cost is $272 for lifetime access. And to get that, you just have to go to newshelves.com/BLS, and that will take you right to where you sign up for the course. And you sign up, and it's all email based. I got into it really, really quickly. It wasn't hard. And I think it's all automated, right? They don't have to wait for anyone or anything. It's like you sign up and you go.
You sign up and you have access.
Love it, love it, love it. And so we actually have Erin, and Erin has used the course, and she was saying it's a plethora of information on marketing your book. It is well worth the investment. I will be going back over all the videos and resource sheets to help me develop a detailed marketing plan. This is someone who's actually been using the course, who has actually gone through all of it, not just looked at it. And so it's good to know that it's user friendly. You don't have to be a tech savvy pro. You do not have to, you don't have to know what you're doing to get started. This is kind of a course that even if you're kind of in the basics of learning, you can hop on and learn as you go, I think.
Definitely. And Erin is somebody who has chosen to self-publish. So she's actually she went through the course to help her figure out what decisions she wanted to make as she was self-publishing the book, because she was putting together her marketing plan at the same time.
Yeah. And I love that. And it's something, again, you can kind of go forward and learn as you go. You can actually use it for retrograde books that you've put out, or you can really plan ahead for any books you've got coming out. It's got a really long lifespan and that access. So if you're ready to launch your book or relaunch your book, or you just want access to all of the amazing things that Tara has put together, I often say on Free Advice Fridays that Tara is my brain. And she has poured her brain and all of her resources into this course. So if you're ready to do that, you just go to newshelves.com slash BLS for Book Launch Simplified. Use code NEWSHELVES, which is good through Saturday. And then you will get that $25 off. And for $272, you've got lifetime access to this course that will be updated and have all of these resources. Which again, I think it's awesome. Thank you, Tara. I mean, I know that this is kind of you've just opened up your home in essence to us and allowed us to kind of take the first peek inside, which I really appreciate. And guys, I would not be surprised if that price goes up later. Certainly after I have a stern talking to with Tara about all that she has built into that and all of the things that she offers. I think that is something that has a lot of value. So you can always go in and grab that. We will have a replay that will be up later, but also if anyone has any questions kind of for the end, Tara has graciously agreed to answer questions and chat with us a little bit. So if you've got questions about launching a book or marketing or anything along those lines, let us know. We'll stick around for a couple more minutes in the chat. Let's see, Valerie's asking, does this course help you learn how to be a bestseller on Amazon?
Honestly, no, it does not, because I don't personally advise that that's something that our authors focus on a lot. For me, becoming a bestseller on Amazon is about gaming the system, and there isn't a lot of value to it. It's one thing to talk about being a bestseller on New York Times or USA, Wall Street Journal or USA Today, but an Amazon one is not exactly what it should be. And no, if it's on sale for $197, that shouldn't be the case. I don't know where the link went.
I don't know that either. Man, you did give me a magic link, Tara. Let me see.
Just checking it out.
She really hooked us up. Kidding, don't do that. Let's see. I think that I saw it at $297, but let's check it.
Should have been $297. Yeah, it says $297 on the link that Carrie has provided.
I think so. Let's see. Let's try the code. Did we maybe get a super duper access code? I don't know. Let's see.
You have to put your name and email in first to get the code to work.
It's so complex. I told you how well I work with instructions. I'm still seeing it as $297 with the $25 discount code. So if you if some magic is happening and you've got some type of discount going up for 197, I'm not sure how, but
I don't know. 197 was the price that I offered the validation team back when I first created it before I launched it. So it shouldn't be out there anymore.
Oh, but if it is, if you just email us a link or post a link, we'd appreciate that. But it should be 297 with a 25 off. And so, yeah. And I think as far as Amazon, I agree with you, Tara, that kind of having the Amazon bestseller, it is something that people really have tied on to, but people are catching on that if you're bestseller in a niche category, it's not something that you brag about, let's say, to libraries. You certainly don't brag about it to bookstores. Now, if you are top 100 in the Amazon store overall, I would brag about that. I'll be honest.
Yes. Yes.
But as far as hitting niche bestseller lists, it's kind of fading out in popularity. And I think it's more important to make sure that you have an overall well-organized, well-optimized book listing. And the reason why you want to be optimized is so that the algorithms will see that your book is trending and it's moving, and then they'll show your book more for free. So I think there has to be a difference between striving for bestseller on Amazon or anywhere and optimizing so that you get the longevity of a really great optimized marketing plan. And they're not mutually exclusive. Sometimes when you optimize your book really well, you do hit bestseller in Amazon. But there are certainly programs out there that offer a little bit of sketchy advice on how to get to Amazon bestseller. And I think Tara and I would both agree to avoid those, because when you do that, many times you're actually hurting your algorithms. Tara, and this was not someone trying to hit bestseller list, but someone who was getting reviews, and because they weren't having natural reviewers, people who actually reviewed the kind of books that the author was putting out, they were having friends and family members review the book and buy the book, and it was messing up those algorithms. So that what happened is that all of the also bots, or the things that when people were looking at her book and they were kind of putting her book with on the marketing on Amazon, it was like potato peelers. It was not helping her out in the long run. And sometimes a Amazon bestseller campaign just to hit that orange banner can be a little bit like that.
And I've known people who have gotten an Amazon bestseller and earned $0, because what they did is they rode a Kindle free promotion up to the top. And then as soon as the free promotion ended, your title now moves over to the paid Kindle, and you may have a bestseller and never earned $1. And so to me, it doesn't feel ethical.
Yeah. Well, and I think that's important too, is that really standing and making sure that you're ethically doing things in long run. I actually, I don't remember where, but I'd read an article somewhere where it actually compared selling a bunch of books for a cheap price all at once versus selling slowly but consistently at a regular price. And you make way more profit, and you actually sell more books in the long term. You get that lift, you get that snowball effect when you there are no shortcuts. There just aren't. You kind of have to go through all the process if you want long-term longevity, especially if you're planning on writing more than one book.
You want your sales rank to be sticky. And the way to make it sticky is to have consistent sales over a long period of time. Yeah. So I saw that Valerie asked if I coach privately for marketing. I do offer periodic VIP marketing sessions where we can have a talk. I know Carrie does the same thing though too. So, I don't want to overstep there. And somebody else asked, would it be worth a relaunch if I already have a book out and did the free Amazon ISBN? And personally, I'm always in favor of having your own ISBN. And so if you're talking about, you can certainly relaunch anytime you want, but if you're going to do a relaunch, I would go ahead and get your ISBN and use your own, put out a second edition. You can then have Amazon basically merge the listings of the first edition and the second edition and relaunch that second edition.
Absolutely. And I will concur with that, is that getting your own ISBN is key to really making sure that you have full control. I compared it kind of to running a race and then stopping right before the finish line. Having your own ISBN gives you full control so that you can actually make sure that you are having all of your options. There are some marketing things that aren't even available to you if you don't own your own ISBN. So you're going to put the time, the effort, and the money into it. Get your ISBN, do a second edition with your own ISBN and do it that way. It is absolutely, in my opinion, worth the time and the effort to do that because it will serve you better in the long run. Let's see. My book first came out a couple of years ago. I'm now completing my second. The first did not launch properly. Should I relaunch the first and then launch the second, or use the launch of the second to help launch the first? Does that make sense?
Personally, I like relaunching the first one just to try and get some visibility and build anticipation for the second one. So while you're preparing the second one, you can almost use it as a pre-order type phase to be able to be promoting the first one and drawing leaders. So what we end up doing oftentimes is we'll take the first chapter of the second book and put it at the end of the first book, so that readers of the first book that you're promoting and relaunching will then get to that first chapter of the next one. And by the time they get done with it, it's like, oh, it's not the full thing. I want to read the rest of it. And they go and they buy the second one. So I would focus on relaunching the first one personally.
I agree. And give that a little bit of time. Even if we're talking about series, I work with a lot of series, and you know what? We always market the first book. We don't, I mean, yes, you announce the second and the third book, but you always market the first book, and then you get the read through of all the other books. I've been doing this with an author who launched a series in January. Didn't have a book out before that, launched a series in January. I drove him hard, and we got 5 books out in the series this far this year. So we really moved fast. Wow. And we have marketed that first book in the series, and that is it. That's the only Amazon ads we run. That we've done some book promotions. He last month cleared 160,000 Kindle unlimited page reads, plus over 100 outright sales of his book series. And we don't market the other books. We stick with the first book. So keep in mind that if it's a series, sometimes launching and relaunching that first book is what drives everything forward. So it's important to know what you're marketing. Who starts the second book in a series? Monsters. That's who. No one but monsters start into this series. So I think it's really important that you know what you're marketing. And again, it goes back to knowing your reader. What do they want? Are they going to read midway? If you have nonfiction books that kind of are on different topics or in same topics but aren't a series, I think you can pick up wherever. But if you have a series, keep that in mind, is that you can launch, relaunch, and relaunch again your first book over and over again and really see the benefit for a really long time.
And then eventually you can actually have bundles of those books so that you can have, if you have 5 books in the series, you can actually have 6 products. You can have each of the 5 books separately, and then a box set, for lack of a better term, even though it's typically digital, that you can be selling as well.
Yeah. And we have a question, Tara, for anyone who maybe works with authors, can they get access to the course and use it? How do they work with you for like multiple authors? Email?
Yeah, let's talk about an email. Have them get in touch with me. So my email address for anybody that does need it is tara@emeraldlakebooks.com. I will put it in the chat.
Perfect. Yeah, so if you have any special questions, and certainly you can always ask through New Shelves as well. You can email us and we will always get you in touch with Tara. So if you have special needs, if you have multiple authors you want to get access to the course, then let Tara or I know. Let's see. And it looks like Vicky signed up. Randy got his course. Linda is asking, are these strategies mainly for authors who will sell their own books through their website? For example, taking orders, invoicing, and shipping, or is it something that authors who are selling from direct sale sites like Amazon and Ingram Spark can use as well?
So it's definitely for those who are have a distributed book. So it can go Amazon, Ingram Spark, all of that. It does cover a little bit about selling from your own website, but that's just a small portion of it.
Yeah, I agree. Let's see. What makes a book a second series? So if you're actually writing in a series, whether it be a series of characters, or mostly you see that in fiction, either children or adults fiction, where the stories kind of build on each other more often than not. Let's see. Let's see.
Some
Oh,
nonfiction books, too.
Yes, and
Sorry.
I'm sorry. She meant second edition. Trina says she's fired. Well, that's the case of one very small word makes a very big difference. I was like, well, a series usually means that, one after the other. So that's
A
hilarious.
second edition is essentially the same book. You can make minor modifications to it, but then release it a second time. And so you may have, so for instance, we had a book that somebody did that was called Behind the Beard, and they self-published it. And they decided then that they wanted to work with us and improve it by adding new photographs, adding a couple more stories, things like that. And so it's told by a professional Santa Claus. It's quite the book. And so they did the second book with us. And so that's referred to as a second edition. It's still essentially the same book, but there's enough different content that if somebody were to compare the first edition and the second edition, they would see noticeable differences. And so you can do your own second edition when, keep in mind, each edition is tied into a specific ISBN. And so if you self-published and you used Amazon's ISBN, you can then decide that you want to republish a second time by taking the first one down and doing a new one that's using your ISBN. And it can even be the same content, although we do kind of recommend that you note someplace that it's a second edition, just so that if there are differences in content, readers aren't confused as to which version they have.
Yeah, absolutely. You note it. Now, is this program customized for sets of genres? For example, children's YA, or is it broad to where it fits any genre, just depending on what authors are focused on?
It does fit any genre. We do talk about in certain lessons that there's certain tools or techniques that we recommend that are better suited for one or the other. So for instance, there's certain review sites we may recommend that are better for fiction than nonfiction, things like that. But on the whole, the courses, we tried to keep it very balanced so that it worked really well for somebody, whether it was fiction or nonfiction, because we publish both.
Yeah, absolutely. And does the course cover actual book launch day, like what to do on launch day?
It is not that specific. So it's not going to focus on, on a given day, this is what you do. It helps you build out your plan so that you can figure out what you intend to do when.
Yeah. Yeah. Let's see. How many of your personal authors clients have used this so far? I mean, I know it wasn't a course at first. It was something that Tara was using personally with authors. I've worked with some of her authors who have gone through this program, but the official program is newer. Do you have an idea of how many people have run through it yet?
Yeah, so we did a soft release of it in February, and so we really haven't been promoting it very much. So we have about 30 students in it so far that are in various stages of going through it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I've seen that as well. And again, though, this is something that that's kind of self-guided. The actual principles have been used by Tara for a really long time by her authors in her group. And a lot of them are things that New Shelves recommends as well. That's why I'm very comfortable with this, with recommending. I don't know, here at New Shelves, if we don't like the program, if it's not something we would use or recommend to people, we don't do anything with it. And this is a program that I'm very comfortable recommending because it's true, it's value, it's things that I personally would recommend as well. And so it's got my seal of approval for whatever that's worth.
It's worth a lot to me.
Oh, look, we're having a heart moment. Let's see. What about using your own ISBN, but the free barcode at Amazon? Any opinions on that?
There's not an issue with using the free barcode. I mean, it's just simply translating the ISBN into, the barcode text. It's actually a font. Barcodes are actually a font, so not a big deal either way. One of the things we do recommend, though, especially when you're doing through Ingram Spark, is we do typically apply our own barcode because we want to make sure that the price is embedded in the barcode as well.
Exactly. And there is a video that I'll post. So in the replay, I promise I will post all the links to the Dear Author, the Dear Reader, to all the things. So if you're on this call, you will get a replay and I'll have links to everything. And I will also post a link. We have a YouTube video I did showing you how to create a price barcode. It's very easy. It's free. And as Tara said, it really only matters for Ingram Spark because Ingram Spark is when you're going out to retailers. Typically, a reader who's buying off of Amazon is not flipping the book over and wondering if you've got the perfect barcode or not. So it's not really a big deal. And if they are, then man, they're more savvy than my average reader, I think. Let's see. Yes. All right. And a second edition would also require going through the copyright cost and time again, correct?
Well, yes and no. I mean, keep in mind that copyright, you're talking about the copyright registration. So copyright, your material is copyrighted as soon as it's in written form. The only time you have to pay for copyright is if you're actually registering your copyright, which you do in the instance if you want to be able to seek legal damages if anybody takes your material. So it's not something that you necessarily have to register your content. It's more about potential future litigation.
Yeah, and also keep in mind that your original copyright is still the same. So if your copyright of the original material is still there and you've just changed out the ISBN and the cover, you're still pretty much covered. And as Tara said, as soon as you write that material, it is technically copyrighted according to the US laws.
Yes.
So it's not something, can you do it? Yes, but is it something that you really have to go through? If it's a budget concern or something like that, not necessarily. That's a personal decision based on your needs. And if you think that you really would go to litigation if it came to that. Let's see. All right. Howard, if you just emailed me at info@newshelves.com, any questions for New Shelves personally, if you send them to info@newshelves.com, I would be happy to chat with you about that. And I'll put my email right in there. All right, let's see. And so do you have an opinion of if this is primarily for fiction or nonfiction authors, or is it truly a tool that can be used by either?
It can be used by either.
I agree. And I know I said in the very beginning that it is very rare that I will say a tool can be used by pretty much any genre. Usually it's not as fluid as that, but I do think that the Book Launches Simplified can really be used by any genre. So why is a website so important?
So all of the different places that you can promote and market a book, Facebook, Amazon, all these, Barnes and Noble, they're not under your control. They can decide at any point in time that they're not going to honor what you have there. I knew years ago, I had a friend who had a Facebook page that had 17,000 followers, and Facebook changed the algorithm, and suddenly only 2% of his followers were seeing his post at any given time. His business basically went bust overnight because of an algorithm change. When you own your own website, you are creating a place on the internet that you are in charge of. You're the one who decides when that website's no longer there. It's not anybody else's decision. So it gives a great place to be able to aggregate information about you, about where you're going to be doing signings, about what books you've written, about what opportunities people may have. Do you have a media kit? Do you have discussion questions for book clubs? There's all sorts of things that you can have on an author site that then the SEO is all pointing people to you, and nobody else can take that away from you. So I think it's important for an author to have a website, not simply to sell books, but also to make sure that you're discoverable.
I agree with that. And also it's your home online. it is your home. Not only do you own it, but you get to set the terms, you get to do everything there. And we have seen, not to get political, but we have seen big accounts shut down on social media. And so even the big publishers are starting to look more and more at the power of someone's website and their newsletter list, which they collect on their website, and looking at that and seeing what kind of power they have on there. Social media numbers absolutely matter because it can be reached, but it's not necessarily a be all end all. And having a website that's your control, that's your home. So I think that's really important.
Randy's being a smart aleck.
Again, what?
He wants to know if the course will help him choose the liquor he purchases after his launch.
I'll help with that. Give me a call. Let's see. My publisher got my ISBN for the first book. Should I get another one? And I think, William, are you still with your publisher? Are you trying to do a second edition on your own? Because that answer would certainly change any recommendation from Tara or myself.
Yes, and is it for the same book or a different book?
Also a good point. I said she's like part of my brain over here. Let's see. We answered that one. Still with the same publisher for at least the second book. So if you are with the same publisher with the same book and you're not doing a new edition, then your publisher owns the ISBN. That's one of the things of working with the publishers. If you're self-publishing, then you want to own the ISBN. You don't want to take a free ISBN from Amazon or KDP or Ingram Spark. But if you are working with a publisher and going through them, your publisher owns the ISBN, and that is standard, and that is where it should be. Let's see, did you say if you publish print and ebooks on Amazon, you can't publish audiobooks through someone else? I don't think we said that. But
I don't remember that conversation.
Let's talk about it. If you've got your print and ebooks on Amazon, your audiobook is totally separate. Your audiobook, most commonly, I think, is either published through ACX, which is Amazon's Creative Exchange, or it's done through Findaway Voices. Those are the two most common. Tara, are you using any other place to distribute audiobooks?
I'm not, but Authors Direct is another one that a lot of places use. So that there are alternatives. It comes down to kind of how and where do you want the book distributed to, because ACX has different distribution partners than Findaway Voices and different contracts in terms of, you know, whether you're exclusive or non-exclusive with them and what royalties you get.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, there's no wrong choices. Well, I won't say there's no, but very often there's not wrong choices. It's what are your goals and how can you meet those goals? That's why we self-publish, is so that we have the control to really have our goals drive our marketing. And that is what matters, is having that option there.
We should co-author a blog post on making all the wrong choices.
I could get in some satire there.
We could
might get myself in trouble, but let's see. Is it too broad of a target audience to say middle school aged kids who enjoy ghost stories like Goosebumps or books by Mary Downing Hahn and Dan Pawlowski?
Oftentimes, I find that when you're talking about middle school aged kids, what boys read and what girls read are going to be very different. And so I would think that you may want to niche down just a little bit more. Certainly the Goosebumps reference is helpful. Having comparable title references is always a good way to get people engaged right away with, is this something I like? You know, if they can recognize what that comparable title is. I'm not familiar with who the two other authors are that you mentioned. I remember Goosebumps from when my kids were little. So,
yeah, and I think that's actually a pretty targeted audience. Now, if you just said middle grade ghost stories, maybe that's kind of big, but middle grade ghost stories and they like certain authors, I think that's pretty niche down.
Yeah, I do.
So actually, I think you're on the right track, and good job. And it looks like we've got one more question live, and that is the question of, do you recommend digital rights management or DRM for ebooks?
So I watched a video on YouTube years ago from Neil Gaiman, who talked about the fact that people spend a lot of time getting worked up over piracy, and that it's going to happen, and actually that authors should take the viewpoint that it is flattering when your book is pirated, which is a stretch, I think. But no, I don't recommend DRM, because you can have very legitimate individuals who are purchasing it that have problems reading a book they've purchased across multiple devices they own, because part of DRM is it keeps it from being able to be read on other devices. And so you can create more problems for legitimate customers by applying DRM. So I don't recommend it.
And I concur. Not only that, anyone who knows what they're doing can break DRM code in minutes. I mean, I've seen someone do it minutes if they are that determined to take your book. And I've told authors before, how lucky could you be if your book went viral because it was pirated? I mean, are those readers who would buy your book anyway? Is it lost revenue, or is it an opportunity for a new audience? And also, I have seen people literally worry themselves sick about fear of piracy. It doesn't happen as often as you think it would. So I wouldn't worry too much about that as far as the piracy aspect. It's kind of like...
We have one book that's been pirated a lot, and I would prefer that it wasn't. But I think really more of the concern when it comes to piracy is how often those sites are being used to spread malware. And they're going to do that whether they're using your file or somebody else's file. So, Neil Gaiman's point, though, was the same that Carrie has made in terms of, a book being pirated and then going viral because, everybody loved it. What does that do for your author career? What does that do when a publisher is talking to you about your next book? If they see that kind of virality, it really can be beneficial for you in your career. So I would not waste too much time worrying about it.
I agree. It's not, and all the things that could keep you up at night, don't let that be the thing that keeps you up at night. Yes. All right. Well, I think we've answered all the questions. Tara, thank you for all of the information on how not only to launch a book, but how to launch it well and how to launch it simplified. And so anyone looking to sign up, you just go to newshelves.com/BLS. Do not forget that coupon code of new shelves with an S at the end. That will give you $25 off through Saturday. We will have a replay. I will also have a nice, pretty landing page that has all of the resource links. Tara and I will get together to make sure we have all the best links for you. And if you have questions, you can always reply to any of the reminders about this webinar. Those will come straight to me, and I can get you in touch with Tara if need be. And thank you for joining us, Tara. Thank you for allowing us to share this. I know that it's, again, pretty new and something you're just releasing. So I really appreciate that you shared it with us.
Well, thank you very much. And thanks for having me on.
Of course. Thanks, everybody. And we'll see you next time.
Okay. Bye.